Hi there, welcome back to our mini-series about using selections to isolate objects in images and put them on new backgrounds. Um, so in our last video, we covered some basic selection tools, including the marquee, the lasso and polygonal lasso, the magic wand tool. I do want to really quickly address, so if I'm working on my original here, there are like AI-based tools that are pretty well integrated into the system. Like for example, the object selection tool. Um, it's a really handy tool, I gotta say, but it is fallible. So the way that it works is that you would use it to select an object that's like on a background, or like on a layer. You can see that it works really well to identify even like different grapes in this bowl, or like the apples and all the different fruits, um, or it identifies the plant pretty handily. The issue is that this tool, while pretty powerful, it does make mistakes. I can see that here I have my selection, and it just straight up didn't identify this part of the blender as being part of the blender. Some of the edges get a little bit janky. Like down here, you can see that it's like really jagged and it's not picking all of the blender. So I'm kind of going through the old-fashioned way, the quote-unquote old-fashioned way of how to make selections, just to make sure that you have those tools at your disposal and that you're able to make edits and adjustments once you've used kind of some of these shortcuts. All right, so now that we've got that covered, um, in our last video, we isolated the blender from our background. I'm just going to go ahead and open up my move tool so that stops getting highlighted. But we isolated our blender from our background, and now it's sitting here on its own. And I think it would be really cool to have it sitting on, let's say, I don't know. Let's say I want it to be sitting on this like a lovely purple background. I'm going to select, or like down here in my layers panel, I'm going to pick layer 1, which is my background, hit G to open up my paint bucket tool, and just click. You can make this any color you want. It really doesn't matter for the purposes of this video. Um, but what I do want to point out is that it is sitting on a different background color than the blue and tan that it was on in the original photo, right? And that matters. You can see the reflection of that background popping up all throughout this, like on the reflective surfaces and on the, especially in the translucent surfaces of this object, right? I've got all this blue. It doesn't make any sense if I have my object sitting on a blue background, or I'm sorry, not a blue background. So I could, I could make my background very similar to the color that it was already sitting on. For instance, I could go ahead and use my eyedropper tool, pick the blue that's in this kind of like in the background here, showing through the glass container, and then I can just fill in the background like that, and it looks quote unquote normal. But chances are, uh, that you're gonna not always want to do that. Sometimes you're gonna want to have a different color. So how can we do that? How can I make sure that I can manipulate all of these pixels that are blue and have them reflect a different color? In this case, like this purple color. Um, there's a few ways that we can do that, but one of the most straightforward ways is to go in um, and use our color selection. Uh, that this is a really it's a much more targeted tool than, for example, using like your lasso tool or your magic wand tool. These tools are really great for when you're making broad swaths of selections or things that are easy to pick. But for things like this, this blue color, even if it works kind of for areas like this, it's not really going to pick up on everything in here, right? Like it's just impossible to get all of that blue in all the places that is presented in this transparent container here. So what can I do instead? Well, I can go up to select here in my drop down menus. I'm going to go select. I'm going to go down to color range, right? See that? Click on that. And what I get is I can see like in this little preview, um, a black and white contrast of sampled colors. And what that means is that I have my eyedropper tool up here, and I can pick different areas of the image, and I'll get like a little preview pop up here as well. And I can pick like pixels that I want to select things that are close to it here in this image. So things that are white or light, um, those are the pixels that I have selected, and stuff that is black are pixels that I don't have selected. Fuzziness basically lets you adjust like your tolerance. Um, so turning up the fuzziness basically means you'll have a less targeted, more broad selection here. And I want to make sure that I'm getting the blues to the best of my ability. I'm probably going to have to come in here and do this a couple times because I have some blue that's reflecting off of the body of the mixer here. That's very light as opposed to like some of the blues that are in here that are very dark. And unfortunately, the fuzzier that you make it, the more difficult it is to get like really targeted color. But I'm just going to go ahead. I'll say that like my fuzziness being at 120 and this blue right here I'm selecting from the body, and I'm getting most of what I want right now. So I'm just going to hit OK. And I can see I've got a lot of like it looks like I've got a good proportion of my blue pixels selected. So now let's say that I want to manipulate these colors. Basically, I've got them all selected out, and I want to change them so that they're not reflecting blue anymore, right? I want them to reflect and look like they're sitting in this kind of bed of like lavender color instead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to eyedropper first to get this like violet background as my foreground color, and then I am going to open up my hue and saturation menu. The shortcut for this is Control U, and if for whatever reason I want to not use the my keyboard shortcut, I would just go to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, and that's where that menu sits. And in front here, I can colorize. I check colorize, and basically what I'm doing is I'm telling all these pixels that I want them to be, first of all, sitting in the same color range, and then second of all, that color range should be approximately matching whatever my foreground color is, in this case, that lavender. From here, I can just kind of tweak. I can push the saturation up or down until I've got it sitting like more or less where I want it to be. In this case, I think like moving the saturation to 40 looks about right. I don't need to adjust my lightness or darkness. And my hue is by default kind of where I want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And then if I deselect, I can see I've made some good improvements, but there's still some blue that I haven't manipulated in here yet. So it just doesn't look quite right. And then I've also got even some green from the plant that was in that previous image, right? Like some of this is getting reflected off and whatnot, or even some of this brown. So I'm just going to repeat the process of doing my select color range, but I'm going to pick different parts of my image. So in this particular instance, I'm going to pick like some of this like brownish color. I'm going to lower my fuzziness because I only really want it to be getting like this brown. And I don't want to make that truly purple, I think. I think that just like lowering the saturation should be okay. Let's see. And I don't think that I got enough of that brown in there either. So I'm going to Control Z that, zoom back out, and just reselect with my color range until and just kind of like, lather, rinse, repeat until I've got it looking more or less the way that I want it to. So I'm increasing my fuzziness here just to see what happens. Okay, I've got more of that brown in there, and I'm also getting some of this reflective, like chrome fixture. I'm just going to Control U to open up this menu again, and instead of colorizing this, I'm just going to lower the saturation. I can see the difference is not terribly palpable, but it is being made there. And if I Control Z, like if I want to kind of overlay it, I can see like the difference that's being made there. And now I'm just going to go in and try to get rid of some of this green. This is important. You're probably not going to get it perfect. That's okay. Most people are not looking at this with the same level of scrutiny that like you probably are as you're making your edits. And even like, let's say I'm like, okay, I have some green down here that like is similar to the green that's up in here, and I don't want to manipulate that. I can just go ahead and like open my marquee tool, hit my like remove from selection, and deselect everything that's down here. And then Control U again and have it match that violet once again. And I can even see here, I'm like, okay, like I didn't get the fuzziness that I desired, so I'm just going to go in and color range and keep basically just lather, rinse, repeat. I might want to bump up the fuzziness on this a little bit. Just get more of that green in there, but then I've got a lot more of this KitchenAid like body selected, so I'm just going to make sure that I deselect that with my marquee tool You can see I don't need to be precise at all. Okay, and then I can just, eyedropper that lavender again, so it's my foreground color, and then I'll open up my hue saturation menu, hit colorize, and I'll hit OK. Again, it's not perfect, but nobody's going to be scrutinizing it too closely, and I can see like the difference here is pretty stark. Okay, so now I've manipulated my blender here to be sitting a lot like better on this background, on this like lavender color. Let's say that I made a mistake, right? Like let's say that I don't know, like really messed up the colors or, something looked horrid and I want to start over. Let's say I made it look like this and I don't know. Let's say that that was a big mistake. Not to worry. I can go ahead and make a selection of this object right here and then go in and just like copy paste it again from my old background, right? So what you can do is you see over here, you've got your little thumbnails of your layers. So if I want to select all the pixels that exist on a single layer, all I have to do is right click on the thumbnail. This is important. Right click on the thumbnail itself. Don't right click on the name or the bar that's next to the layer because that'll bring up a different menu. I want to right click on the thumbnail itself. And I'll go up here to select pixels. When I do that, it'll reselect all the pixels that are here on this layer. And now if I go back to my original layer, and I want to make sure that I have that layer selected, which will be indicated by it being highlighted, I can just go ahead and copy and paste again. Copy and paste in place, which is Control-Shift-V. So I can see that I've just made a whole new selection. This can also be really helpful for if you want to like compare like adjustments that you've made. I can just toggle this on and off. But yeah, it's just just a really helpful way to make a selection of everything that's on that layer. Yeah, just another tool that's available to you.